It's partially blocked because of an accident between Junction 5 for Sittingbourne and Junction 5 for Faversham. In Kennington, Camberwell New Road eastbound is partly blocked. That's because of a police investigation between the A23 and Camberwell Green. In Dalston, Shacklewell Lane is closed in both directions because of a police investigation. That's between Stoke Newington Road and St Mark's Rise. And on the rails, because of engineering works, Paddington Station is closed today, so Great Western Railway services are going to and from Marylebone instead. LBC Travel, I'm Dave Goff.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show.
Good morning, everybody. Bank holiday weekend. The weather is extraordinary. I went to the local supermarket to buy some charcoal yesterday. Virtually had to fight people to get to it. There was a run. So it's barbecue weather, and people generally seem very happy around the place. I particularly think the Conservative Party this weekend will be feeling not so much happy but relieved, but is the sun still shining for Jeremy Corbyn? This is the question, because one thing you cannot take away from Corbyn is towards the end of 2016, he looked in real trouble. Speculation as to whether he could survive as Labour leader. His standing in the polls nationally very low. Labour got down to 24% of the poll in one survey and then surged with the big, Jeremy Corbyn, and suddenly he was the cool dude, and they got as high as 42%. So one thing's for certain, Corbyn did bring big momentum to the Labour Party, but I just wonder, after the results that we've seen this Thursday, whether perhaps that bubble has burst. So what we saw on Thursday, for those that haven't looked at it, 150 council elections that took place across the country. Labour won 2,350 seats, up 77. The Conservatives 1,332, down 33. The Lib Dems 536, up 75. The Greens 139, up 8. And UKIP 13, down 123. So, tough times for UKIP. Marginally better for the Lib Dems, particularly in south-west London. A little bit of encouragement for the Greens, though not very much. But Labour, on the face of it, they're up. But what does this really, really mean? Has Corbyn's bubble burst? I'm going to ask Paul Richards, who is a former Labour advisor and columnist for The Progress magazine, what he makes of this. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning to you.
You know, the truth is that we were hearing, certainly the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, saying there was no part of the capital that Labour couldn't win, and speculation that maybe Wandsworth would fall to Labour, maybe Westminster would fall to Labour. It just didn't quite happen, did it?
Well, not only that, but we lost in Barnet as well, so we went backwards in some parts of the capital. And the problem is, if you start going on about seizing the crown jewels of London and sending busloads of young activists to Westminster and Wandsworth, and then you fall short of actually taking those councils, even though you make gains, then you end up with egg all over your face, don't you? I mean, it was a real failure of strategy, but also of the messaging ahead of the election, raising expectations. The problem now, Nigel, is that the Corbynistas can't sort of look at themselves in the face and say, oh, well, that didn't work. They're now telling each other that this was the best result since 1971.
Yes, I keep hearing this. Where does that statistic come from, then?
Well, out of the fevered imagination of Corbynistas overnight, I think. I mean, it doesn't bear up to any of the metrics at all. If you look at councils gained, it doesn't work on that one. Only gaining 77 overall councillors. I mean, compared to 1995, for example, when Labour gained 1,800 councillors. We're 5 points down on the general election result when we got 40% down to 35% on the national vote share. So it's just a made-up number, and they all repeat this back to each other, and it becomes a truth. It's just sort of manufacturing of truth.
One of the things that struck me is, I led UKIP, Paul, through some big growth years, sort of 2012, 2013, 2014, and I saw our poll numbers go from very small numbers to, 20% and up around that number. And I remember that a sort of never-ending series of stories about, a UKIP councillor here or there saying something stupid or doing something stupid, and the drip, drip, drip in the end, without doubt, began to put a lid on where UKIP was. And I'm just wondering, you mentioned Barnet. Barnet is a part of London with a reasonably sizable Jewish electorate. And I'm just beginning to wonder whether this constant debate about anti-Semitism is perhaps above all what has stopped that kind of shiny image that was there around Corbyn?
Well, I think this stain of racism, which runs very deep, I think is definitely turning people off. I mean, if you look at the numbers in Barnet, interestingly, the population in Barnet is about 15% Jewish.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just Jewish voters rejecting Labour, it was their friends and their neighbours, equally disgusted by anti-Semitism, also doing the same thing. And, you know, that is a feeling that most of us sort of decent people in the Labour Party completely share. We abhor the anti-Semitism that's happened in the last 2 years, and it's people who've come into the Labour Party from other parties, other traditions, and have brought that with them. You know, it wasn't an issue under Ed Miliband or previous leaders. It's happened in the last 2 years, and it's it's cause and effect. And people look at that and they go, well, this is horrible. How can we be losing seats against such an unpopular government because people perceive us to be racist? This is the Labour Party. We're supposed to be held to a much higher standard than other parties, and yet this is what's happening on Thursday.
And some internal criticism. I mean, Chuka Umunna making it pretty clear that with these results, you know, difficult to be confident about winning the next general election, and Alistair Campbell, I mean, really putting the boot in, to be honest. I mean, is Labour now, are we now back to the days of arguments about whether Corbyn's the right man to be leader?
Well, some of us have always been having that argument, it must be said. I mean, the election result was a surprise in terms of, I'm talking about the general election last year, it was a surprise in terms of the increase in vote share, but, you know, we didn't do very well in terms of number of seats compared to the Conservatives, and they were 1 million votes ahead of us, and, yeah, we got 40%, but they got 43%, and that was an unpopular, supposedly unpopular government. So I'm very wary of predictions. I mean, it is difficult in this very febrile atmosphere to say, well, this election means the next election will be one way or the other, but the shine has definitely come off.
Yes.
I mean, we're losing members now, so, you know, the membership has peaked and is now going down. The election results on Thursday show there isn't really much of a correlation between the size of your party and your electoral performance. I mean, we're massively bigger than all the other parties, but it didn't translate into votes necessarily. And you know, don't forget, outside of London, we went backwards. We lost Derby Council. You know, so it's not a good picture. And my real issue is, you know, a party picking itself off the map after Thursday should have a deep, hard look and ask itself the questions, what went wrong. Instead, we're getting the repetition of it was the best results since 1971, we're all doing well, it's all fine. And that is just sticking your head in the sand. That's not a responsible act.
And finally, and unfairly, I'm going to ask you, on the current trajectory, how do you assess Corbyn's chances of winning a majority at the next general election?
Well, it's an absolutely enormous mountain to climb, and the way you climb that mountain is by reaching out to centrist votes and people switching from the Conservatives and other parties to your party by appearing moderate, mainstream and sensible. And those are not three words that you necessarily associate with the Corbynites, are they?
Many would agree with you. Paul Richards, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Well, wow, wasn't that, you know, from a former Labour Party advisor and columnist from the Progress magazine and a Labour supporter, they were pretty frank words, weren't they? You know, he wants the Labour Party to be moderate, to reach out to people in the middle, and he fears that under Corbyn's leadership, and with some of the influences around him and some of the friends that Mr Corbyn appears to have, that is now looking difficult. Folks, I think Corbyn's bubble has burst. That is not to say that it's impossible for him, with the SNP and perhaps the Lib Dems, to form, you know, a government at the next general election. But I think whether Labour succeed or fails now, in my view, depends more on what Mrs May does with Brexit. You know, you saw the Conservatives doing better than expected because a lot of people who voted UKIP in 2014 voted Conservative. Back in 2014, those local elections, the same cycle we've just voted on, were held on the same day as the European elections. It marked the high point of UKIP taking votes from the Conservative Party. At a subsequent election, the 2015 general election, UKIP took more from Labour. That's why in the general election last year, people were surprised how many UKIP voters had gone back to Labour, but this time round they're surprised how many have gone back to the Tories. They were different stages of evolution of UKIP. But the one thing I'm certain of is that those people who came to UKIP in those European elections of 2014 and have gone back to the Conservatives, if Mrs May does not deliver a very, very clean Brexit. They will not be going out and voting for Mrs May again. So I'm not saying all is lost for Corbyn and Labour, but I am saying I think the shine has gone, and I just begin to think, and, you know, Barnett gives you perhaps a clue, I just begin to think that sometimes that drip on the stone, those constant allegations that racism is a problem within the party that hasn't been dealt with, and, you know, too many of those drips begins to make a hole in the stone, and I begin to feel perhaps that's what's happened. What does Danny in Epsom think? Good morning, Danny.
Nigel, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I mean, overall, Danny, I have to say, I think probably today people are keener on the weather than they are on party politics. I sense not only has the energy, enthusiasm and buzz gone out of Labour, I think we're actually pretty disenchanted with both the parties at the moment.
We are, Nigel. I mean, I'm part of the struggle, actually. I ran in the local elections going back quite a few years now in Coulsdon West.
Yep.
And I pride myself, I've become second behind the Tories, and I pride myself on getting a lot of votes for UKIP in that time and doing my little bit for Brexit over in Coulsdon West. But I just wanted to say that I think the Labour Party is basically a two-tier party. You've got the centrists, and I think you've got the people way out there on the far left, and I think they need a split. Because for people like me, for white working class or middle class people, I look at their front bench and it's like kryptonite. I look at Diane Abbott, the confirmed racist, probably the worst politician in political history.
That's your opinion. Some think she's terrific, you know.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I look at McDonnell and I think, I look at him and think, what a dinosaur. He's like, it's like a rebel. Corbyn hasn't changed his mind on anything for 40 years. I look at them and I just think, how could I ever vote for you? And, people like me won't vote for them. They're basically appealing to the lifelong socialists and the kids who I literally look at them and I think, But there's a real trend at the moment in society to blame the current government for all of our ills.
Oh, yes.
And I don't think, you can't do that.
Right, so Danny, there's nothing, as a white working class person who's pro-Brexit and did his bit to help Brexit, there's nothing this Labour leader's going to do to get you to vote for him next time round. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, Nigel, when you look at the electorate, right, most of the electorate are in England, and most of those voters are centre-right, yeah? So the only way a Labour government ever wins an election, right, is by playing the centre ground and appealing to that part of the electorate. If you don't do that, you won't be elected.
Yeah.
And that's just the fact. Well, the other thing you do, you get into government and then you use mass forced immigration onto everyone and try and change the vote that way. They tried it last time.
Well, that's moving on a bit beyond. But hey, Danny, thank you. And Danny, white working class, not tempted at the moment by this Labour leadership. I don't think he's on his own. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's now 10:16.
LBC at the weekend. Andrew Castle.
You all know what gazumping is if you've been involved in this. You've probably spent thousands on the solicitor. You spent thousands on the surveys, the searches, the whole thing, and then you get gazumped for a higher price. That's disgraceful. That should be outlawed.
Leading Britain's conversation. Andrew Castle. Today from 3 on LBC.
There's so much to like about Dacia Retail Group. Where do we begin? Well, we could start by saying the Dacia Sandero is a What Car Award winner for the 6th year in a row. We like that. And at Dacia Retail Group, it's yours from just $6,995. We like that too. Oh, and you'll really like this. Dacia is the fastest selling automotive brand in Europe. Find your nearest dealer at daciaretail.co.uk. I think you'll like it.
This bank holiday weekend on Gold.
Lovely jubbly.
Heidi, hi! Hi!
He who dares wins. Oh, stupid boy.
Sweetie.
I've got a plan so cunning. Don't believe it.
You're superb.
Manuel, Rodney,
Pamela.
Ulrich, Double.
Catch all your favourite catchphrases. All this bank holiday weekend on the Gold TV channel. Available on Sky, Virgin and BT.
My house, my office, they're a mess.
You need London Storage Vaults. Their self-storage units are in an underground vault near Oxford Circus, so they're completely safe. They're also climate controlled, so they're ideal for anything from paperwork to fine wines.
Sounds great.
They'll collect your stuff for free if you're in zones 1 and 2. There's 24/7 access and all from just £10 a week.
London Storage Vaults, the future of self-storage. Visit londonstoragevaults.com. Terms and conditions apply.
What's the smart way to visit Belfast? Aer Lingus fly from Heathrow to Belfast City 3 times a day. So this spring, explore National Geographic's Rising Star City. Uncover Belfast's Titanic history. Discover culinary delights at St George's Market. And embrace the warm Belfast welcome in a cool rooftop bar. Flights start from $39.99 each way as part of a return trip. Smart gets ready to explore Belfast. Book now at airlingus.com. Offer subject to conditions and availability.
Want to progress more in your career or run your own business?
With a business degree at GSM London, you can follow your bold dreams to success.
Degrees are awarded by the University of Plymouth, and at GSM London, you can start a degree without formal qualifications on our foundation year.
So why wait till October? Start a degree this June.
Search Have Bold Dreams at GSM London now.
GSM London. Have bold dreams.
All hybrids are designed to be more efficient, but at Kia, our hybrid range is also stylish, practical, and comes with an electrifying £1,000 saving when you test drive a Niro or a plug-in Optima. And like all our cars, our hybrids come with Kia's 7-year warranty. So, whether you're looking for a compact SUV, a saloon, or a sports wagon, take the Kia Hybrid Challenge and book your test drive today. Visit your local Kia dealer or search Kia Eco online. 7-year 100,000-mile warranty, terms and exclusions apply.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
The Labour Party is in something of a turmoil after these local election results, with Alistair Campbell, Chuka Ramuna really openly saying they don't think, frankly, Labour did very well. And we just had Paul Richards on from Progress magazine making very much the same point, that actually Corbyn has been damned a bit by the anti-Semitism row. And I think the shine has come off Corbyn. I think you've seen the big run. I think from here on in it's going to be much harder for him. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me this is just a minor dip in Corbyn's fortunes and that actually the happy days are going to return. But he's got some strong supporters out there like Peter in Guildford. Nigel, I'm sick of hearing Chuka Ramuna and Campbell, etc. attacking Corbyn. They will not accept that he's the Labour leader. New Labour are responsible for Labour's poor results with their constant backstabbing. They've been attacking Corbyn from day one, and it's about time they shut up or join the Tories where they belong. So there you go. There is some pretty strong feelings in Labour between the Corbynistas like Peter and the New Labourites like Alistair Campbell. Nigel, are you for real? The media is still trying to put across that Labour is a failure. Lol. Numbers don't lie. Do not let them lie to you. Well, you're quite right. Numbers don't lie. And whilst Labour were up, they were not up that much against a government that is, frankly, somewhat lacking in lustre. There we are. I'm being nice about Theresa May. It must be Sunday morning. They should have done a lot better than they did. And, you know, the Mayor of London, frankly, looks a little bit silly by overplaying his hand and talking expectations up, perhaps to unreasonable levels. Colin from Aylesbury takes the other view. He says the whole, Jeremy Corbyn claptrap has always been nothing more than a ridiculous farce. I've got more chance of riding a unicycle to the moon than Corbyn has of becoming PM. Colin, despite what I've said this morning, he still does have a chance of becoming the next PM because, look, you know, between the Liberal Democrats and between the SNP, who's to say there aren't going to be 40 to 50 seats there between those two parties? That is what could make all the difference. And really, the big picture is that we have, to a very large extent, gone back to two-party politics, across England certainly, and I think Wales has to be included in that too. And that the UKIP vote, which was at times a very big significant vote, has gone down to about 2%, and it does appear we are a little bit stalemated. Brendan is calling from Nottingham. Good morning, Brendan.
Good morning, Nigel.
So, if the shine's gone off Corbyn, is his best hope that the Tories make a mess of it?
Absolutely. As a former UKIP member, the last time I voted Labour was for Tony Blair in 1997.
Yeah.
And I can tell you something now, and I didn't think I'd ever think it or say it. If May does not deliver a proper Brexit, I'm voting Corbyn, and I mean it. I've had enough. I've worked for the public sector, hiss, most of my life.
Right.
The last 8 years, Nigel, I've had 3 1% and 5 0% increases. Now, Labour have often said, Corbyn have often said, public sector, nurses, whatever, etc., 10%, 20%. The thing is, I've always believed, despite the fact I've never earned more than just over £8 an hour in my life, I've always believed in living within your means, and I've always believed it was important for the country to live within its means. But the way I'm feeling right now, we've waited long for this vote, and we got it. We won by a small amount, but the point is we won.
Yep.
And the way I feel right now, up until now, I voted Conservative, not because they represent my needs, but I felt it was best for the country.
So you were one of those.
So why should they represent me? But
so you're a Brexit means Brexit voter, Brendan, yeah?
Sorry, I am a Brexit voter, yes. But the way I feel now is to say, right, well, if you're not going to give us Brexit, independence, our courts decide everything, our government decides everything, etc., then I'll vote Labour. Who cares if it crashes the economy? I'm going to get big increases in wages. Why not be selfish and vote Labour? Who cares if future children and grandchildren have to pay for it? Because up until now, a person like myself have voted Conservative for sensible reasons. What is there to vote Conservative
Okay,
for?
no, Brendan, I think there's a very interesting point of view. I think it's held by quite a lot of people. A lot of people who've been voting for Mrs May in 2017 did so because they're Brexit means Brexit voters. On Twitter I get, my friend that voted Labour all his life voted Tory this time. Because the hardline Brexiteer Jezza ratted on Brexit. Well, the problem Jezza's got on Brexit is they are all over the place. On the one hand, he sacks Owen Smith and makes clear the party won't support a second referendum, because if they do that, they know the word betrayal will be out there amongst many Labour voters. But on the other hand, whenever we see somebody else in the shadow cabinet appearing on television, they sound almost as Remain, in many ways, when it comes to the single market and the customs union, as the Liberal Democrats do. Let's go to Claire in Edgware. Good morning, Claire.
Good morning, Mr Farage. Well, unless I was voting a different election to everyone else, since when was success a failure? The Labour Party got nearly 1,000 more councillors than the Tory Party. They put on more councils, and yet they are deemed to be a failure. I live under the auspices of Barnet Council.
Yep.
It is quite simply the worst council in London. It is badly run. They're called the Easy Council. They outsource everything to people who are incompetent. We have no youth services. Our council tax is astronomical. For a Band C, you're talking about £1,500 a month. They have one of the highest records for taking people to court. My neighbour, who survived the Nazi Holocaust, they wanted to take her to court. Fortunately for them, she died before they could do it. Now, and also, with regard to the front bench, what I'm hearing about Diane Abbott is pure, unadulterated racism. She has
racism? Why is it racism, Claire?
She defended. They say she's useless, she's incompetent, she can't do anything. As I've said before, she had one crisis, she had one mishap when she was in a diabetic crisis, and she's lambasted as some terminal idiot who can't put one foot in front of the other.
Claire, I mean, come on. She's had more than one. She's had more than one disaster on media, hasn't she?
Let me just finish my point. I believe that what she's suffering is unadulterated racism. She stood up for the Windrush generation when nobody else was speaking for them. She's fought and fought for Stephen Lawrence. She fights for the Hasidic community in her area. Now, because the rather affluent Jews in our area so despise Jeremy Corbyn, they've kept a terrible council in, and we've got extortionate council tax for another 4 years.
Claire, I'm sorry, Claire. Are you suggesting that it's racist to criticise somebody who's black?
No, I'm saying what Diane Abbott has to endure is pure
Would you
racism.
accept that her interview with Nick Ferrari on this radio station, on LBC, during the general election, was, by the standards of any frontline political figure, a catastrophe?
It was bad, but then us in the NHS know why it was bad. It was her 8th or 9th interview that morning. Her sugar levels were disastrously low. She should have said to LBC, sorry, I cannot come and do the interview.
Let's assume that's right, okay? So what happened to her on Piers Morgan last week?
Well, I watched the interview again. What was the problem? You cannot expound on a policy that you haven't actually evaluated and completed. What she said is we need to look at Britain's immigration policy and we need to basically revamp it. But what Piers Morgan was trying to do, and I never, ever, ever, ever watch him. It's only because you made such a fuss of him the night before. I went and I went and got it on iPlayer, and I thought, up until that point, she was fine. She was expounding. It was about 6:30 in the morning.
Well, Claire, I tell you what, let's not get too sidetracked on this, but I mean, my view was, as Shadow Home Secretary, you've been in the role for a considerable period of time, you should at least be able to answer that question. Either way, Claire, you make the point that Labour have had a very good Thursday night. Look at the numbers. Labour across the country were up by 77 seats. The Tories were down by 33 seats. In a sense, this is rather like our equivalent of the American midterm elections. This is happening in the middle of a parliament. Labour would have expected, the point I'm making, I think we're all making, Claire, Labour would have expected and did expect to do much better than this.
Every government, every party always expects to do better, and they deserve to do better because their policies are excellent. They keep lambasting John McDonnell. When John McDonnell was head of finance at the GLC, it was always in surplus. All we're asking for as the people of Britain is we want our electricity, our gas and our railways back. We want to stop...
Well, you'll only get that if you leave the European Union, Claire.
No, because the Germans did that.
No. Let's not fiddle around with this. If you stay part of the European single market, they can't do that. Finally, Claire, very quickly, do you think Corbyn is still set to be our next Prime Minister?
Yeah, he's the only truly honourable, decent, genuine human being in Parliament. He has morals that are so high, he has values that are high, and he will root out the curse of anti-Semitism, the curse of Islamophobia, the curse of racism, and he will make Labour, not the new Labour farce that we had, and all the moaning new Labour like Chuck Amuna. Chuck Amuna comes from the same part of the world as my family do, and quite frankly, I wish he would go back.
Claire, you have made the case for Jeremy Corbyn as clearly and as passionately as anybody in the country has made it, and I thank you for putting that point of view. There we are. Claire still believes he's on course. Many of the rest of us think the shine has actually rather gone off. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's now 10:30 and time for the news with Philip Chryssikos.
Manchester United say Sir Alex Ferguson needs a period of intensive care to optimise his recovery following emergency surgery for a brain hemorrhage. The club adds the procedure on its 76-year-old former manager has gone very well. Labour says its position on Brexit is for the UK to remain within the customs union during the transition period and to negotiate a customs union to solve the Northern Ireland border problem. Shadow Chancellor John McDonnell says he believes there will be movement from the EU towards Labour's position, and a lot of Conservatives will follow his party's stance. Separately, Mr McDonnell admits accusations of anti-Semitism within Labour affected the party's local election result in Barnet. He says he'll meet with councillors in the North London Borough this week. A 17-year-old has died in a shooting in South London. Police were called to Southwark. No one's been arrested. LBC weather. Dry and sunny, becoming very warm in places later, apart from the far north and the northwest of Scotland, where there will be patchy light rain, a high of 25 degrees.
LBC Travel are accused on the M25 clockwise in Surrey. 2 lanes are blocked because of an accident between junction 13 for Staines and junction 14 for Heathrow Terminal 4. There's debris on the road. In Kennington, Camberwell New Road eastbound is partly blocked because of a police investigation between the A23 Brixton Road and Camberwell Green. In Dalston, Shacklewell Lane is closed in both directions because of a police investigation. That's between Stoke Newington Road and St Mark's Rise. In West Horndon, the A127 Southend Arterial Road eastbound is partially blocked. That's because of an accident at Halfway House. And on the rails, Paddington Station is closed today because of engineering work, so Great Western Railway services are going to and from Marylebone. LBC Travel, I'm Dave Goff.
This is LBC.
If you started your own furniture store today, I doubt you'd call it Fish Pools. But if the year was 1899 and your name was Ernest Fishpool, well, it was, and he did. Today, Fishpools in Waltham Cross is one of the largest furniture stores in the southeast with a huge range of modern and classic styles. For up to 25% off and to view our new season furniture, flooring and home accessories, visit fishpools.co.uk.
That's a website, Ernest. Know-it-alls. Nothing worse. But I'm not going to pretend I know everything. I just want you to have a think about what you drink at home through the week. The couple with a takeaway. The few in front of the telly. Cutting out just a few of those drinks could improve your health and even lower your blood pressure. And would you really miss them? Ultimately, it's your shout. Have a little less. feel a lot better. Download the Drinkaware app to get started.
Could you take a photo of us in front of the cathedral?
Oh, we need to get a selfie on the beach.
Wait, before you eat it, take a photo of the octopus. There are many ways to make your friends jealous in Malta, but only one way to fly. Fly British Airways from Gatwick to Malta from £389 per person for return flights and 7 nights accommodation. Availability and dates are extremely limited, ATOL protected. Conditions and booking fee may apply. For full details, cba.com/Gatwick.
All hybrids are designed to be more efficient, but at Kia, our hybrid range is also stylish, practical, and comes with an electrifying £1,000 saving when you test drive a Niro or a plug-in Optima. And like all our cars, our hybrids come with Kia's 7-year warranty. So, whether you're looking for a compact SUV, a saloon, or a sports wagon, take the Kia Hybrid Challenge and book your test drive today. Visit your local Kia dealer or search Kia Eco online. 7-year, 100,000-mile warranty. Terms and exclusions apply.
Getting busy with your borders? Try our resilient Imara Busy Lizzies. They're new and exclusive to B&Q and just £10 for 4 packs. Don't forget the compost and hose kit. So for low prices on beautiful plants, you can do it when you B&Q it. Busy Lizzie's £3.12 per pack of 9.
BT Infinity's super fast speeds mean you can enjoy lightning fast downloading, super fast streaming and super fast online gaming, all at our lowest ever standard price for fibre. £24.99 a month on an 18-month contract with a one-off £9.99 delivery fee. But now with no activation fee when you join BT before May 10th. Super fast fibre for super fast everything. Search BT Broadband to join today.
Prices may change. New customers, 30 gigs usage, terms apply.
Oak Furnitureland's up to 50% off bank holiday event must end Monday. Don't miss amazing deals on solid hardwood collections for every room. Hurry, must end Monday.
Leading Britain's conversation, The Nigel Farage Show. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag #FarageOnLBC.
Corbyn's Labour and New Labour are saying nasty things about each other this morning, because I tell you what, those results on Thursday were nothing like as good as people like Sadiq Khan had said they might be. Before I get back to that, and I'm asking you, has Corbyn's bubble burst? And I think it has, but I do not think that it's impossible he becomes the next Prime Minister, because so much depends on how Theresa May leads Brexit voters. But before that, a quick word on Donald Trump. He was speaking in Dallas, Texas to the National Rifle Association, and he was basically defending the right of citizens to carry weapons. He made the argument that the horrific terrorist attack that we saw in Paris would not have been as bad if armed citizens had been there. They could have dealt with the problem more quickly. And he also talked about London. He said, in London, which has unbelievably tough gun laws, a once very prestigious hospital right in the middle is like a war zone for horrible stabbing wounds. And, of course, he has received much criticism for it. Where did the whole thing come from? Well, actually, there was a piece that appeared from a trauma surgeon in a British newspaper 4 months ago, where he likened his hospital to an Afghan war zone. So that is where Trump got the quote from. But I guess anything Trump says or does about the United Kingdom between now and his visit on July the 13th is going to make news. And of course, Boris is across on the other side of the pond. He's meeting National Security Advisor John Bolton, he's meeting Vice President Pence, and this is all about the Iran nuclear deal. Britain, the European Union, supporting a deal with Iran, whereby we ease sanctions, we basically give money to Iran, and in return they promise us they're not going to develop nuclear weapons. And Trump thinks that's a dumb deal. Trump, and particularly John Bolton, his new advisor, they see Iran as sponsors of state terrorism. And within the next 2 weeks, the deadline's the 12th of May, Trump says he's going to pull America's name from that deal. So Boris over there on a diplomatic mission, although not, to my knowledge, actually going to meet Trump himself. But as I say, all things Trump between now and the 13th of July will be big news. And what will be even bigger news, of course, is the meeting that is due to take place between Trump and Kim Jong-un. And they say they're going to meet at that demilitarized zone between North and South Korea. Be a pretty dramatic picture, won't it? Trump and Kim Jong-un walking there to meet. So Whether you like it or not, folks, on this Sunday morning, Donald Trump is not going away from the news any time soon. But back to Corbyn, back to Labour, back to the constant drip of anti-Semitism and allegations of racism within the party that has not been dealt with. Those results certainly hurt Labour in Barnet. And I think more widely, there are people saying, I don't know, this Corbyn bloke, he seems pretty sincere, but look at the company he keeps. John is calling from Chigwell. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Nigel. How are you doing on this fine morning?
Well, I'm working, John, and you're listening. But I do intend this afternoon to. This afternoon, I'm going to do a little barbecue because I managed to get some charcoal just from a supermarket,
Lovely.
and
Very nice.
I fully intend to have a barbecue. I may even allow myself a glass of something, and then probably in true British style, fall asleep in the sun and wake up tomorrow looking red.
Well, I mean, you as a defender of the working classes, Nigel, I'm sure you should be having a pint of something.
Well, I didn't say I wouldn't, did I? And I'm sure before I get to the barbecue, I'll stop at the pub. But that aside, John...
Well, Nigel, a good thing I don't have to come and defend Diane Abbott because your last caller just done such a sterling job. But I will ask you this, if you want to talk about politicians who are doing such a bad job, can you ask Boris Johnson next time you see him, where's the £50 million from the Garden Bridge? Right, Nigel, look, I would like to say this, right?
John, just before you start, maybe you're actually beginning to answer my question for me. If there's 50 million missing here, if there's a government that's not delivering on much of its manifesto, if there's a leader who was strong on Brexit, now looks weak on Brexit, surely aren't these all the reasons, John, why Labour should have done better on Thursday?
Well, with the constant barrage of bad news about Jeremy Corbyn, it's no surprising that he didn't. Look, I'm surprised that he's actually doing as well as he is, Nigel. I mean, look at the people that you bring on. Yeah, you bring on Chuka Umunna, you bring on Alistair Campbell. They hate Jeremy Corbyn. Why would you bring them on when you know they hate you? So you're bringing them on purposely because you know that, right? Why didn't you bring on some of the councillors that had won their seats?
John, I have spent time on this show with Alistair Campbell, and that, of course, is because he is one of the leading spokesmen in this country against Brexit happening. He edits the New European newspaper, and I think for many, I hope at least for many listeners, you get the two strong points of view on Brexit. When it comes to Corbyn supporters, I allowed Claire before the break to give a virtual eulogy about Jeremy Corbyn. So I'm very happy to hear both sides of the argument. But, John, do you? I mean, what I'm saying is this. I credited Corbyn today with taking a party that sunk to 24% of the polls to 42% of the polls. That of itself was an astonishing achievement. What I am saying, John, is that I think the shine has gone. I think the bubble has burst. I think from here on it's going to be harder.
Nigel, he put on 77 new councillors. Nothing has burst. I mean, if you guys in the media keep telling everyone, oh no, the Labour Party, they're doing so badly, people will start to believe it, right? The anti-Semitism is just a load of rubbish again, right? Because what they had to do, what you guys had to do in the media, you had to find a minority that you could say, well, Jeremy Corbyn is racist against this. Like, you couldn't do it to black people because you knew that wouldn't work.
Nobody, John, nobody has called Corbyn racist. No one's called Jeremy Corbyn racist. No one I've heard of any repute has said that. What they have said is he's not been very careful about some of the company that he keeps. And are you seriously telling me that there is not a problem at all within Labour of anti-Semitism?
Nigel, look at some of the company that you keep, right?
I am not leading the Labour Party, John. That's the point.
Nigel,
forget no, John. Come back to Come back to the point. Even Corbyn himself, John, admitted there were pockets of anti-Semitism within the Labour Party. Are you, John, in Chigwell? Are you in denial?
Nigel, there are pockets of anti-Semitism within society. That's what
no need to worry then, is there?
Why is Jeremy Corbyn the only person that must police all the people that he supports on the internet? How is that his job? How is it his job to support to go after trolls? It's not his job.
Well, it was my job as leader of UKIP to do that, I can assure you. And when you lead a modern political party, political party, John, that's what you have to do. John, I think you're in denial over this.
Nigel, you didn't do that when you led UKIP, right? In fact, when you was at Thanet, right, when your campaign at Thanet, right, you said that you never had people from the BNP and the National Front alongside you. But all of your people at Thanet who was running your campaign was all
Do you know, John, this is a tangential argument, but I will tell you this. When I led UKIP, we were the only party in the country that banned former BNP people from even being members. The Labour Party had former BNP councillors sitting for Labour. But that's a separate argument. John, OK, I understand it. You don't believe anti-Semitism is a problem within the party. Let me ask you, finally, we've had a good chat. Let me ask you, finally, do you think that Jeremy Corbyn is still on course to win the next general election?
Of course he's on course to win the next general election. That's why you guys are doing all you can to try and stop him. Of course he's going to win the next general election. You know he is.
All right, OK, John, listen, great call, very sporty. Well, John is absolutely convinced that Corbyn's on course to win. And as I say, he still could win. I don't see how he can get a majority. I think they have too many seats to win. It's going to be too difficult. But, you know, between the SNP and the Lib Dems, there could be 40 or 50 seats there. It could well be a coalition government. But only if Theresa May drops the ball on Brexit. Come on, man, you're still bashing JC. What about the appeaser in charge? Shouldn't she be under scrutiny 24/7? I get on Twitter. She is under scrutiny 24/7. Don't make any bones about that. And I think she's got a very, very difficult couple of weeks coming up. And let me just say to you on Twitter that the fact we are now 23 months since a referendum in which we very clearly voted to leave the customs union, and the Cabinet Committee, War Committee, was meeting this week to discuss what our policy is towards the customs union. Believe me, she is under scrutiny. Make no bones about it. And if actually, do you know what? If truth be told, I think our enthusiasm for both the main parties is pretty lukewarm. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's now 10:45.
This is LBC.
Hi, I'm Chloe from Network Rail, with some important news if you're travelling over either of the bank holidays this May. From Saturday the 5th to Monday the 7th of May, and from Saturday the 26th to Monday the 28th of May, our team of engineers will be working to deliver essential rail upgrades. Some services will be affected, so please check before you travel at nationalrail.co.uk/May or contact your train operator. Network Rail, working for you.
At Wix, there's buy one, get one free on all 2.5 litre emulsion and all wood care, including great brands like Dulux and Cuprinol. Ends Monday. Wix, T's and C's apply.
No! This is the sound of waking up to no hot water. No one wants to find their boiler on the blink. We're with you. Boiler IQ lets us keep an eye on your boiler, so you don't have to worry. When you're with British Gas, we're with you. Compatible boiler required, home care customers only.
So you have a property and want to let it, but you don't want the stress of finding a tenant. At makeyourmove.co.uk, we make it easy. Just go online, list your property, then track exactly what's happening with it, anytime, anywhere. Because we're online, you're not paying for our high street offices. So you'll save hundreds of pounds and there are no hidden fees. Plus we're backed by property experts. Save time, save money and find a good tenant faster. Visit makeyourmove.co.uk or text LET to 66777.
Don't be taken for granted. Come get some big love at Big Motoring World. You'll love how big our choice is. Up to 2,000 beautiful used BMWs, Audis, Mercedes, and VWs. Already in waiting just for you. Big Motoring World, minutes from the M25. See bigmotoringworld.co.uk. Now sing it. Big, big, big Motoring World.
There are many ways to see Tenerife. Its historic towns, architecture, volcanoes, or just mile on mile of beautiful beaches. But there's only one way to fly.
Fly British Airways from Gatwick to Tenerife from £299 per person for return flights and 7 nights accommodation. Availability and dates are extremely limited. ATOL protected. Conditions and booking fee may apply. For full details, cba.com/Gatwick.
This is LBC, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
I think Corbyn's bubble has burst. The big M that he had with him that saw that party under his leadership go from 24% to 42%, and it was remarkable. You know, the success, the popularity that he enjoyed, I think that's burst. I think it's going to be much, much tougher for Jeremy Corbyn here on in. But some of you still support him very strongly, and despite the sunshine, one or two of you are very angry. Stephen's really angry on Facebook. Just remind us how many UKIP councillors are left in the UK. Well, what's that got to do with it, Stephen? Labour won more seats than all the other parties combined. Those of you whining about a new voting system, don't you idiots remember we had a referendum on that? No, we didn't. We had a referendum not on a proportional system, but on a preferential system. Separate debate, but Stephen, cheer up. It's sunny. Nigel, there is so much focus on Corbyn, re anti-Semitism, and yes, it is an issue in Labour, like it is in society. But there are other MPs in other parties that get suspended or expelled for racism. No one's saying this isn't an issue throughout all parties. It just looks like there's rather more of it in Labour than people had ever thought before. And I think the other thing is, people are rather critical of the way in which the problem has been handled. Often, it's how you handle a problem as party leader that is more important than the problem itself, and they appear to have been a little bit flat-footed on it. Paul's not convinced. He says Labour can still win the next general election. Do we really believe, I get on Twitter, that Jezza, with his front bench team, could seriously lead this country? Diane Car Crash Abbott, in charge of the Home Office, MI5, security, immigration. Let that sink in slowly. At the next general election, I will vote Labour. I'm wishing for Jeremy Corbyn to be Prime Minister, says Linda. Folks, I'm not saying it's all over for Labour in the sense that they're going to, collapse in the opinion polls. I'm saying the bubble has burst, the big momentum's gone. It is now, unless Mrs May makes a complete hash of this, and that is entirely possible, of course, but unless she does, I don't see how Corbyn gets a majority next time round. If he was on course for that, these results would have been a lot better. That is my view. What does Tony in Fareham think? Good morning, Tony.
Good morning to you, Nigel. Yes, I think Corbyn and his party have been exposed, really. The anti-Semitism argument was the last straw that broke the camel's back, I believe, for a lot of people, including myself. My parents were both Labour voters, but I've never been a Labour voter. And I've often wondered about staying Conservative, but I think the choice between the two, there is no choice between the two. If you want to see this country's defences stripped, then please vote Labour. And as for the unholy alliance between the SNP and Labour, well, let's look at what's in Scotland. Our new frigates are being built in Scotland. They've just built our new aircraft carriers, completed our 2 new aircraft carriers in Scotland. Trident is based in Scotland, or that will go under a Labour government, and this country will be exposed.
Tony, you come from a part of the world with a long Royal Naval tradition and quite a lot of army camps not too far away from where you are, and you clearly care. You clearly care about defence as an issue, which I do too, by the way. But there are a lot of people out there, Tony, that don't. A lot of people out there that think we should spend far less on the military, and a lot of people out there even questioning whether we need Trident. So you see, Tony, there is potentially a constituency for Corbyn with people who feel that way.
Yeah, yes, absolutely, and I understand where they're coming from. But let's look at what happened a couple of months ago in Salisbury.
Yep.
And let's look at what the Russians have been doing by floating their submarines down the channel. They've got new submarines. They're rebuilding. There is a new Cold War in place now, and the sooner people realise it, the better. And we cannot.
So the prospect of a pacifist Prime Minister ultimately puts people off voting for him.
I don't think he'll ever get to power. Because I just think he's too dangerous.
Okay.
And
And you're going to vote for the Conservatives then, from the sound of it. But are there any circumstances, Tony, over Brexit in which you might not be able to go out and vote Conservative?
That's a very good question. I think that Theresa May has had some terrible luck. Not only has she made some bad decisions, but she's also had very bad luck. And I'm hoping that her luck will change and she will come to her senses and start listening to people who voted for Brexit. The majority of the people in this country voted for Brexit, and that's what they want. And we know all about the customs union. We know all about the single market, and these people that say we didn't.
But I tell you what's interesting, Tony.
Whistling in the wind.
I tell you what's really interesting, Tony, is now about 70% of the Tory vote is a Brexit vote, right? And if she doesn't deliver Brexit, a lot of those people next time round, some may switch to Labour, but an awful lot may simply stay at home. So the point I'm making, Tony, is she's vulnerable on this.
Yeah, she is vulnerable to it, and it's interesting to see how well the Liberal Democrats have done, really, because I think Vince Cable is very credible, but he's got the same views on defence that much of Labour has. So my view is that I think the Liberal Democrats will pick up lots of votes, but the Conservatives need to deliver, and it's
that's right, absolutely, Tony. They need, if she delivers, then she'll probably be okay. Although, do you know what, Tony? Either way, we're probably headed for a hung parliament anyway. Thank you very much indeed for your call. Let's go to John in Formby. Good morning, John.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. John is a regular caller to this show. So tell me, John, has this bubble burst?
Well, like Chairman Mao said on the French Revolution, it's too early to say.
Right. Okay. Politics being a long game and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think Corbyn will go down in history as the worst Prime Minister we never had.
Right.
And I think it could still go his way. There mustn't be complacency. There's always the chance that the Tories will make a real mess of things, not just on Brexit, but everything else. And I think a lot of people, myself included, regard them as the lesser of two evils. And it's a bit like the Hilaire Belloc poem, better hang on to nurse for fear of
something worse, yeah. Yeah. No, I'm sure that's true, John. I'm sure that's true. But you know, you were a Brexit supporter. You're voting Conservative. 70% now of that Conservative vote is a Brexit vote. She's got to deliver, John, hasn't she?
I don't really know. I still think that Corbyn, Abbott, McDonnell, Thornbury, the rest of that gang are so awful that people may well stick with the Tories. What I would like to see is a bit of a UKIP comeback so that they could usurp the DUP and have considerable influence in government.
Well, you know, the one thing that UKIP did do was in proportional representation elections to do phenomenally well. They even won, goodness me, in 2014. But cracking the first past the post system, John, for a political party that doesn't have a class-based vote is very difficult.
Well, it's up to the electorate to do something about it. If there was some organised tactical voting, it could have two benefits. One, of keeping Corbyn out, and two, of holding the Tories to account.
Yeah, well, a UKIP comeback, John. A UKIP comeback. If Mrs May drops the ball on Brexit, it may well happen. John, I thank you. I'm going to move on to Sandra, who's in New Malden. Good morning, Sandra.
Good morning, Mr. Farage. I just wanted to say very little, and that is basically, I think we should be discussing UKIP.
Oh, well, I've got the wrong subject for debate, have I?
Not Labour Party. The thing is, when you were the leader of that party, you lost that position. And now you, as a presenter...
I did what?
LBC,
I'm sorry, Sandra. Sorry, Sandra. Come again. I did what?
When you were the leader of that party, you lost your position.
I lost it? What, I was sacked?
Yes. You were sacked, absolutely. So,
oh, this is good fun. This is good fun. I'm enjoying this, Sandra.
You are now you're the presenter of LBC and should be acting as a presenter and not targeting a Labour Party or Conservative or anyone else, they discuss in general, but one does not mind that.
Well, if I was sacked, Sandra, if I was sacked from UKIP, Sandra, how could I have an objective debate? I mean, I'd be full of bile and anger and bitterness on this lovely bank holiday Sunday morning, wouldn't I?
No, Mr. Farage, you've got, how can I say, bad luck in you. And what you try to do is put every other person you don't like down. And I think maybe it might sound a bit harsh, but I think you should look yourself in the mirror first, and then maybe we should start discussing you.
Would you know what, Sandra? I've had many things happen in my life, but the one thing I have not had is bad luck. I am one of the luckiest people that's ever been born. I survived a major road traffic accident where I was smashed to bits, cancer when I was very young. I got out of a plane crash, out of a light aircraft crash, and that's a very small club to be a member of. And I happened to find myself leading UKIP at a time when the Conservative Party had lost its way under David Cameron. And I helped the party to win the European elections back in 2014, the first time since 1906 that a party that wasn't Labour or Tory won a national election. So, Sandra, I may be many horrible, terrible things, but I don't bring bad luck. Now, moving on from that, this week saw a 10th defeat for the government in the House of Lords over Brexit legislation as peers backed a move aimed at preventing a hard border from being imposed between Northern Ireland and the Republic. Repeated attempts by the Lords have led some to believe that they are really trying to prevent or delay Brexit. Do you think the time is right now to call for the abolition of the House of Lords? And if you think no, they've got to be there to scrutinise. Call 0345 6060 973. Maybe you think they've overstepped the mark. Time for us to move on to a Senate. Text to 84850. Let me know what you think using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC. And of course, you can watch us on Facebook and comment there too.
On your radio, on your phone, and here.
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 11 o'clock, Manchester United say their former manager, Sir Alex Ferguson, will need intensive care to optimise his recovery after having an emergency operation for a brain hemorrhage. Messages of support continue to arrive from former and current players, as well as from rival clubs, celebrities and politicians from around the world. Consultant neurosurgeon Chris Chandler from King's College Hospital in London says Sir Alex's recovery process will depend on where the bleed is.
If it is within the brain substance itself, then the actual hemorrhage, when it occurs, can cause damage to the brain and can lead to a disability or a deficit in the patient.
The Shadow Chancellor admits the row over anti-Semitism within Labour affected their local election result in the North London borough of Barnet. John McDonnell says he'll meet with local councillors there this week after the Conservatives regained Labour's key target from no overall control. Separately, John McDonnell says Labour wants the UK to remain within the customs union during the Brexit transition period. The Shadow Chancellor also adds that the party would negotiate a customs union to solve the Northern Ireland border problem, saying he believes there will be movement from the European Union towards Labour's position. A 20-year-old man has died after being stabbed in Liverpool city centre. It happened in the early hours. Separately, a 17-year-old boy has died after being found with a gunshot wound in South London. It happened in Southwark yesterday evening. The Royal College of Physicians says it is deeply sorry for a recruitment error that left hundreds of junior doctors to reapply for jobs they'd already been offered. It's blaming human error, describing it as a dreadful situation. The British Medical Association says it will look for compensation for anyone who's already spent money on moving house for a job. The president of Iran is warning his US counterpart Donald Trump pulling America out of the nuclear deal with world powers would be a historic regret. It says the Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson is in the United States to meet White House officials to convince them to stick with the agreement ahead of President Trump making his decision by next Saturday. The UK's former ambassador to Iran, Sir Richard Dalton, has told LBC why the Iran nuclear deal is vital.
It put to bed the suspicions that Iran had a nuclear weapons program, and Iran is abiding by the deal, and it would be foolish in the extreme for President Trump to ditch it.
David Hay is going to consider his retirement from boxing following defeat by Tony Bellew last night. The former WBA heavyweight champion was stopped in the 5th round in their rematch in London. Virtually all parts of the UK are expected to enjoy the warm sunshine today ahead of what forecasters say will be the warmest early bank holiday Monday since 1978 tomorrow. The average for this time of year is around 17 degrees. They say it could top 28 degrees. LBC weather for this afternoon, dry and sunny, becoming very warm in places, apart from the far north and northwest of Scotland, where there will be patchy light rain, a high of 25 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Philip Chrysikos.
Oh, Mum, it's beautiful.
Oh, darling, you look amazing.
It's everything I dreamt of for my special day.
Me too. It's just perfect.
I hope John will love it.
Of course he will. For those monthly payments, even I'm considering one.
Well, for £150 per month with 0% APR, why wouldn't you? It's even got a heated steering wheel.
A brand new Corsa Energy on Vauxhall Help to Buy. It's the start of a happy marriage. Personal contract purchase, deposit of £4,750 and optional final payment of £5,265. 25-month term. Finance subject to status. T's and C's apply. 18 plus Vauxhall Finance.
LBC Travel, there were queues on the M25 clockwise in Surrey. 2 lanes are blocked because of an accident and also a separate breakdown between junction 13 for Staines and junction 14 for Heathrow Terminal 4. There's some debris in the road as well. In Hillingdon, there are queues on the A40 eastbound. 2 lanes are closed between Hillingdon Circus and the Polish War Memorial. That's because the manholes collapsed. In West Horndon, the A127 Southend Arterial Road is partially blocked because of an accident at Halfway House. And on the Tube, engineering work means there's no service on the entire Circle line, no District line between Tower Hill and West Ham, no Hammersmith and City line between King's Cross and Barking, and no Metropolitan line between King's Cross and Aldgate. LBC Travel, I'm Dave Goff.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show.
Welcome back. It's a beautiful Sunday, wonderful weather. What's it going to be like tomorrow, Bank Holiday Monday? Always tough in this country to plan, isn't it? You know, you plan a picnic, it rains. So we are going to get, later on in this hour, our weather guru, John Ketley, on to tell us what tomorrow's all about and whether it's going to go on and become a barbecue summer. But first and foremost, the House of Lords. You know, it's there as an amending chamber. It's there to look at government legislation, to correct it, to make suggestions, and to send it back. But by convention, what it does not do is to go against the manifesto of the elected government of the day. But over the course of the last week, the government has been suffering repeated defeats over its European Union withdrawal bill, leading some to think and comment that actually it's really gone beyond its remit, given that the Conservatives and the SNP were both elected saying we should leave the single market and the customs union. And maybe the biggest criticism is that the Lords, the majority in the Lords, do not see us walking away from Brexit talks as being an option at all. And some of us, myself included, think that in any negotiation you have to be able to have that threat to get anything. So I wanted to find out, what is the motivation, what is the thinking behind the prime movers in the House of Lords, behind their actions this week, and ultimately, you know, have they gone so far that it will now lead to very serious calls for the abolition of the House of Lords and its replacement with an elected Senate? Because I think that's where the debate's going. Well, just before I came on air this morning, I spoke to Lord William Wallace of Saltaire. He's a Lib Dem peer, and I started off by asking him whether the House of Lords had really stepped over the line.
No, I mean, we're the second chamber, not an ideal second chamber. I'm in favour of an elected House of Lords, but we have to work with what we've got, and it's our job to ask detailed questions of where the government's going and if it's got it right and if it knows the detail. And there's an awful lot of detail in the question of leaving the European Union. The referendum asked a very simple question, but the answer is extremely complicated, and that's what we're looking at.
But tradition has it that the House of Lords does not challenge the government on legislation upon which it was elected, and we have the Conservatives, albeit not with an outright majority, but by far the biggest party, in an alliance with the DUP, and in their election manifestos last June, they both promised that we would leave the customs union and leave the single market. And it seems to me that your votes rather go against those manifestos.
We're not challenging the legislation as such. We accept that we seem to be going to leave if the government can sort out how we're going to leave and what we're going to leave. But as I'm sure you recognise, Nigel, the government has so far failed to agree what sort of future relationship with the European Union it has. It has these two ideas for some sort of customs arrangement, and it paid £700,000 to McKinsey's to invent one of them. They're both unworkable. And we are entitled as the second chamber to say, do you know where you're going? Does what you propose work? And if it doesn't, think again. That's what we're doing.
But one of the problems here is that in any business negotiation, and in effect, we can look at, and by the way, I do agree with you that 23 months on from the referendum, for the government not to be clear about its customs union position is somewhat ridiculous. So there we will agree on this Sunday morning. But in any business negotiation, the one thing the other side has to know is that you are prepared to get up and walk away. And do you not agree that your amendments that you've sent back to the House of Commons try to stop the elected government of the day from having that its strongest card?
No. And I mean, one of the things that's going on at the present moment, and as we look at a whole host of implications, like, are we going to leave the European aviation arrangements under which British planes and others fly within a common European space? It gets a bit crowded if we leave it. So there are lots and lots of questions like that. We send these things back to the House of Commons, and they reconsider them. And the government's biggest worry at the present moment is that when they go back to the Commons, a lot of MPs there will say, actually, I think the Lords are right. Or if you can't explain what you mean by this, maybe we shouldn't let you do it. You know as well as I do also in business that when business takes a decision, it doesn't just say, right, we're going to do this come what may, and it doesn't matter what we discover when we look through the books. And now looking through the books, we're now asking the government where it's going and where the national interest is. I was very interested to see Justin Greening quoted in the Times yesterday to say, we've all got to think about the national interest in this because we have a very divided country and we want what's best for Britain, and that's what we're doing.
But no deal could in fact be the best deal, and yet the House of Lords is saying that no deal is not an option. I put it to you again, you are trying to bind the government's hands in these negotiations.
Well, if the government knew what it was doing and was explaining some of its objectives to Parliament, life would be easier for all of us. I don't accept that no deal is better than any deal. And if you listen to what the Prime Minister has been saying, Mrs May's last two speeches, she talks about the importance of our future close relationship with the European Union. That's not asking for no deal, it's asking for a carefully negotiated deal. It's only the Jacob Rees-Moggs of this world who are saying we want no deal.
Well, there may be a few million voters out there, Brexit voters, who feel the same way too. But, I mean, if, and yeah, there's lots of detail, but if at 11 p.m, on the 29th of March next year, we do, Article 50 runs out and we've left the European Union, can this country, in your opinion, be successful outside the European Union?
Well, we'll be poorer. We'll be stuck with a lot of food going rotten because it takes time to get it across the channel inside. We'll have lost... There are 1,000 British customs officers working across the channel at the present moment. You can't manage borders without cooperation with the people on the other side. So we'll find some of the Japanese car companies in Britain deciding not to invest here in the future, so people in the north of England will lose jobs. We'll survive, but we'll be a lot poorer, and the sort of fantasies which Liam Fox is pursuing of, we'll have a wonderful free trade deal with China, we'll have a wonderful free trade deal with India because the Indians are so grateful for the fact that we governed them for 200 years. That's nonsense.
And finally, when it comes to it, there may well be an amendment in the House of Lords to opt for a second referendum. Will you be supporting that when it comes?
I think, given the mess we're in, and you and I agree, given the incompetence of the government, unable to agree on some of the most important aspects of our future relationship, there is an argument that when it comes to the patched-up agreement that we're likely to end up getting at the last minute, this should be put to the people. And that's actually what a very large number of people, a majority, are now saying. I think people like you would probably say, Nigel, it's too important just to allow Parliament to decide on it.
So we have a referendum. Do you accept the government's deal, or do we just leave without a deal? Would that be the referendum?
Not necessarily. Parliament will have to decide on what the case is. We are a parliamentary democracy, and Parliament is there to check the government and think about the national interest.
Well, that was Lord Wallace of Saltaire, Liberal Democrat peer, one of 104 Liberal Democrat peers. I have to say I'm very opposed to the House of Lords in its current form. Over 500 of Blair and Cameron's mates have been put in there. I don't think it's representative of the country at all. And in this case on Brexit, I think it's going above and beyond its constitutional duty. Not happy with it. Quick word from Sam in Stoke-on-Trent. Good morning, Sam.
Morning, Nigel. Pleased to speak to you again.
So I think the Lords needs to go. What do you think?
I think that they're just shining a light on the reason why we need reform, and I think they're doing. I think, like I heard Ian Duncan Smith say, surgeon, doctor, cure yourself. I think that they're making people like me very angry. They're coming across as very privileged, elite, condescending, patronising, and using procedure and word games, and we see right through it. And all this negativity, we can't. I'll tell you what, Nigel, you know, you've been in business. Sack them. Get people who can. Get people who've got a can-do attitude.
I agree. All this we can't do, and the food's going to be rotting at Dover, and it's also negative, isn't it?
Yeah, we can jump ship. But I tell you what, they just think they know better. You know what I mean? They think it's the best thing since sliced bread, because they hopefully think they're going to, like you said, get a job, or I don't know what, but they're just absolutely detached from the public, and it makes me livid that they try and say they're doing it for the people. They're not doing it for the people.
Do you know what, Sam? All of those things you've just said, I am going to put them to another member of the House of Lords. Lord Lamont of Lerwick, the former Conservative Chancellor of this country, is going to be on talking to us about the House of Lords in a minute. But for now, you're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC, and it's 11:15.
Sheila Fogarty, Monday to Friday from 1 p.m.
We don't want a country, do we, where there's people who are chomping at the bit to be educated, to live in this country, to put down roots in this country and contribute. We don't want that whole stratum of people to be living under the cosh that is the Home Office, do we?
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
Banning stuff. Seems every week someone wants to do it. But I reckon you're old enough to know what's good and bad for you. So I just want you to have a think about what you drink at home through the week. The couple in front of the telly, the nightcap before bed. Cutting out just a few of those drinks could help improve your mood. And would you really miss them? But you know what? It's your call. Have a little less, feel a lot better. Download the Drinkaware app to get started.
In the Furniture Village sale, you can live beautifully for less. With bank holiday savings on a huge choice of living, dining and beds, including all our famous brands. So come in store or go online now, because we're sure there's something for you in the Furniture Village sale. But hurry, many offers end bank holiday Monday.
Ella's one-handed stir-fry.
My friends used to say when you have your first kid, you'll always have your hands full. I had triplets, so I've had to learn to do everything one-handed. I have mastered the stir-fry. I take fresh veg, pork marinated in hoisin, and noodles, then stir it all into a wok. It's delicious enough to have again and again, and simple enough to do while I'm playing peekaboo.
Give your pork stir-fry extra zing with our hoisin and ginger marinade. Food Love Stories, brought to you by Tesco.
Forget everything you know about musicals. Bat Out of Hell brings to life the legendary hits of Jim Steinman and Meatloaf. In this outrageous, nostalgic, wild child of a rock and roll musical. Now playing at London's Dominion Theatre. Book now at batoutofhellmusical.com.
Clear a house.
Clear an office? Clear a little bit? Or clear loads of it? With Clearabee, getting rid of rubbish is quick, easy and affordable. Choose our man and van rubbish removal service and we'll come and clear almost any rubbish from almost anywhere. Because whatever you want rid of, there's a Clearabee man in a Clearabee van who can do it professionally and legally. Book now at clearabee.co.uk.
Clear rubbish easily. Clearabee.
There's more to discover this bank holiday in Oak Furnitureland's up to 50% off event. Don't miss amazing deals on a fantastic choice of stylish solid hardwood collections with painted, modern natural and rustic hardwood designs. Go online to find a store near you. Oak Furnitureland's up to 50% off bank holiday event must end Monday.
Don't be taken for granted. Come get some big love at Big Motoring World. You'll love how big our choice is. Up to 2,000 beautiful used BMWs, Audis, Mercedes, and VWs. Already and waiting just for you. Big Motoring World, minutes from the M25. See bigmotoringworld.co.uk. Now sing it. Big, big, big Motoring World.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Well, we've listened to Lord Wallace of Saltaire, one of the prime movers behind a series of defeats that the government has suffered to its European Union bill in the House of Lords. And I have to say, there's a fascinating response coming in. And joining me to listen to that response and give his own view is Lord Lamont of Lerwick, former Conservative Chancellor and member of the House of Lords. Good morning, Lord Lamont.
Good morning, Nigel. How are you?
I'm well. I have to say that on this question of the government receiving a series of defeats, it's kind of leading to a broader debate. We've listened to Lord Wallace of Saltaire. Before I ask you a couple of questions, just listen for a second, if you would, to what I'm getting coming in on text and on tweet. Nigel, I'm sick of the Lords making excuses for their decisions. It's obvious they're voting for their own agenda, says Stephen Croydon. He says, Nigel, now you're talking. Get rid of the unelected House of Lords. Replace them with a Senate. Keep the government honest. Mike in sunny Cornwall. And one here from Dave, who sends me a text. He says, it's about time we got rid of the House of Lords. They turn up, get their 300 quid a day, go to the bar, have dinner, have a snooze in the afternoon and say the occasional hear, hear. Is that an accurate reflection of the House of Lords, or is Dave being unfair?
That's a little bit unfair, but I'm not at all surprised at the comment, because I think the House of Lords is in danger of overstepping the mark. Yep. The function of the House of Lords is to revise, improve, amend legislation. It's not to drive a coach and horses through the legislation. And some of the amendments that are being carried, such as saying the House of Lords after both houses of Parliament after a certain stage should take charge of the negotiations and direct the government, something that's never happened in all history. Treaties are not negotiated by Parliament, they're negotiated by government. This is overstepping the mark, and I think it calls into question the validity of the arguments, which in the past I've always supported for an appointed House, but I've written that even I think that by overstepping the mark, they're calling into question the very justification for the House of Lords.
Yeah, and they do appear, of course, to be giving succour to some of the rebels in Westminster, those that actually want to stop Brexit from happening. I mean, do they realise, do people like Lord Wallace and others, do they actually realise just how angry the Brexit voting public is about this?
I don't think they do, and I have said that if Brexit is destroyed by Parliament and descends into chaos, there will be an enormous backlash, an enormous awakening of bitterness. It would go far beyond calling for the abolition of the House of Lords. It would be a real profound disgust with politics.
Yes, I mean, clearly.
I've always, this question of a second referendum, I've always said, yes, we can have a second referendum after we've left and seen what leaving is like. Nothing can't be reversed, but you can actually, what you've got to do is implement the decision, obey the decision of the electorate, leave the EU. If in 10 years' time someone wants to rejoin, let them argue then.
And what is the government now going to do? I mean, let us say that the House of Lords continues on its current obstructionist path. Does the Prime Minister have the option of appointing, say, 500 new peers to make sure that she can get her legislation through?
I think that would look pretty ridiculous, appointing 200 peers, let us say. What one has to hope is that among those who voted for the amendments, and there are some, and I know some, they will say we're entitled to, this would be the basis of Lord Wallace's argument, we're entitled to ask the House of Commons to think again. But we might do that once, we might do it twice, but we can't go on. In the end, we have to give way because the House is elected. Good sense would indicate that's what they ought to do.
Yes, I mean, ultimately...
And I think it's possible that will be the position of the Labour Party. The Labour Party is a bit split. I think the official position is not to obstruct, but they've got an awful lot of people who are very pro the EU, and they can't entirely control them.
I also wonder, I have to say, that whether part of the problem here, with the Lords flexing their muscles in the way that they are, is perhaps a lack of leadership on the Brexit process in this country. Now, you are a Conservative peer, former Chancellor of the Exchequer, pro-Brexit supporter and campaigner. But, we're now 23 months on from a referendum in which it was absolutely clear to everybody that if we voted to leave, we were leaving the customs union, we were leaving the single market. Isn't it a lack of leadership that 23 months on we have a Brexit War Cabinet meeting this week at which they're still discussing what our approach to the customs union is?
Well, it's easy to say lack of leadership, but there are different views about how you leave. There are a small minority of Conservative MPs who hold hardline views about remaining within the customs union. I think they're wrong. I think, as you say, it's inconsistent with the referendum. But the leadership of the party, if you just expel these people or take the party whip away from them, then you'll just lose the vote. I think the Prime Minister is between Scylla and Charybdis in a very, very, very difficult place.
Yeah, and finally, Lord Lamont,
Can I just say one thing? I mean,
sure.
I think, on the House of Lords, I think what is sort of depressing to me about it is that it's just so out of line with public opinion. All right, the referendum result was just narrow by 2% or so, but it's a massive Remain majority in the House of Lords. That is what depresses me. You have 100 Liberals and no Nigel Farage.
No.
Farage. We need you there.
No, I'd certainly do the catering facilities and bars a lot of good if I was there. But I'm not going to be there in a hurry. I don't think. And finally,
I think you should be there.
Well, that's very sweet of you. Thank you. But no doubt, if I do ever get there, they'll abolish it quickly anyway. But the 29th of March. 11 p.m. on the 29th of March is not very far away. And that is the moment at which we are due to make the big historic break from the Treaty of Rome and what's come since it. Are you still optimistic that we're on track to do that and actually to leave whatever the terms may be?
I believe we will exit on the 29th of March. There will be some details still being negotiated in the so-called transitional, so-called implementation period, but we all know there's some further detail in that. But I believe it will happen. I think once this withdrawal bill is through Parliament, which I hope it will get through, I think the government will be in a stronger position then. And I think after exit day, I think the process will be irreversible.
Lord Lamont, thank you very much indeed for coming on. Well, we've had two members of the House of Lords there, two very different points of view. The Liberal Democrat peer, Lord Wallace, believing that the House of Lords is right to be doing what it's doing to the government's Brexit legislation, and Lord Lamont there, making it pretty clear that unless the House of Lords is careful, calls for its abolition will grow. I think they've grown already, though. Steve says to me, I'm quite happy with the House of Lords and glad they are taking these steps. So not every member of the public wants the Lords gone. No, I didn't suggest they did, Steve, but I do think, forget whether you're Brexit or Remain, if you can for a moment here. I just think generally, for hundreds of peers that have been appointed, I mean, I'm not sure Henry VIII had the powers of patronage that Blair and Cameron have exercised when it comes to putting people in the House of Lords. I wonder, had Remain won, would the Lords have been quite so keen to look out for the good of the people? Asked Polly. Yeah, well, good question. Why can't people understand that it's the EU that's blocking any agreements? No wonder the government is getting nowhere, says Ruth. Ruth, that's why, Michel Barnier, or Barrier, as perhaps we should call him in these negotiations, you need, when you're dealing with these people, the threat that you're going to walk away. And then it's going to be jolly difficult for BMW to sell their motor cars at a good price, or the French wine producers to sell their bottles of booze. You need to have the threat of walking away. And what the House of Lords is trying to do is remove that option from the government. Terry is calling from Cobham. Good morning, Terry.
Good morning, Nigel. Nigel, apart from Brexit, we leave that for a second, as you just said. I'm 67 years of age, sprightly, if you like. And for years, like many people, for decades, I thought, what a waste of time, the House of Lords. The £300 a day, the bottle of wine, the cheap port. And it was just like, as I've got older, it's logical that you need another tier of people who are wiser, I think, not all of them, but wiser, worldly, live things, and a more mature age. So I think we do need them. Forget the £300 and the cheap bottle of wine. I think we do need them.
Yeah, I mean, Terry, would you be tempted with a cheap bottle of wine and the £300 a day?
No.
No, all right, fine. No. You had to think about that.
I'd rather stay in Cobham with a better bottle of wine. But they're needed, though, Nigel, and I think they do play a part. They don't all fall asleep. They're very intelligent men and all that, and you just need people like that. You can't just abolish people like that. Terry,
the idea that we have a revising chamber, absolutely, I do agree in the bicameral system. I think it's absolutely right. The question is the way it's currently constituted the right way to do that? And I worry that it is now so reflective of the London career political class that it's not. People say to me, Terry, reform it. But, hey, Blair did reform it. We've had the major reform. And I'm beginning to think, Terry, that an elected Senate is the only way forward for this, though I do accept that could lose us some expertise in life. But couldn't you make that up in various committees anyway?
Well, I mean, I don't completely know everything about it, but I think it's a very important thing. There must be useless people, like there are so many useless MPs in MPs, is a joke. But there must be people, but there must be some lords who are very, there are knowledgeable, clever, shrewd, and things. And you need, Nigel, we all need people like that. We all need people like that.
I tell you what, Terry, if they were to behave during this Brexit process as if they were wise people trying to be helpful, that may be a good thing, but they're behaving Terry, like obstructionists. Have a great Sunday, Terry. Thank you. And I get by text. So, the unelected body in London is doing the very, very best they can to stop us moving away from the unelected body in Brussels. That's a pretty fair point, isn't it, really? You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's now 11:30 and time for the news with Philip Chrysikos.
Sir Alex Ferguson is facing months of recovery from emergency surgery after suffering a brain hemorrhage. The 76-year-old retired Manchester United manager had an operation last night and remains in intensive care at Salford Royal Hospital. Shadow Chancellor John McDonnell admits the row over the anti-Semitism within Labour affected the party's local election result in Barnet and says he'll meet with its losing councillors in the North London Borough this week. It says Labour chairman Ian Lavery is promising to root out anti-Semitism from top to bottom within the party. A recruitment mistake has left up to 1,500 junior doctors having to reapply for jobs they've already been offered. The Royal College of Physicians is apologising, blaming human error and describing it as a dreadful situation. LBC weather, dry and sunny, becoming very warm in places this afternoon. Apart from the far north, though, and the northwest of Scotland, where there will be patchy light rain, a high of 25 degrees.
LBC Travel, there are queues on the M25 clockwise in Surrey. 2 lanes are blocked because of an accident and a separate breakdown between junction 13 for Staines and junction 14 for Heathrow Terminal 4. There's also some debris on the road. Also clockwise on the M25 in Essex, there are queues after an accident earlier on between junction 27 for the M11 and junction 28 for the A12. All the lanes are open there. In Hillingdon, there are queues on the A40 eastbound. 2 lanes are closed between Hillingdon Circus and the Polish War Memorial because a manhole's collapsed. And on the rails, because of engineering works, Paddington Station is closed all day, so Great Western Railway services are going to and from Marylebone. LBC Travel, I'm Dave Goff.
This is LBC.
I do solemnly declare that I will well and truly serve the Queen in the office of Constable with fairness, diligence and impartiality. Stay down! Huh? I will, to the best of my skill and knowledge, discharge all the duties thereof faithfully, according to law.
It's serious as it gets. Join Nottinghamshire's finest and experience the front line with the latest in body cam technology.
Off the car! Now!
The brand new series of Cops UK Body Cam Squad starts tomorrow at 9, exclusive to Really.
Right now, you can drive off with Aviva car insurance rated 5-star by de facto from just £176 a year. And should you need us, our claims line is open 24/7. Get a quote today, direct from aviva.co.uk.
10% of customers paid £176 or less for our standard cover. November 2017 to January 2018. Priced individually.
From delicate cakes to doorstop sandwiches, there's plenty of joyful food in the Sunday Times this weekend. Get your guide to which fish to eat when and find a selection of nutritious plant-based recipes. Hear the lies that some recipes tell and discover Marina O'Loughlin's new culinary star. Pick up your copy of the Sunday Times this weekend.
Even if you only employ one person, you have to provide a workplace pension. It's the law. Get to know your responsibilities with help from the Pensions Regulator. Visit workplacepensions.gov.uk.
My house, my office, they're a mess. You need London Storage Vaults. Their self-storage units are in an underground vault near Oxford Circus, so they're completely safe. They're also climate controlled, so they're ideal for anything from paperwork to fine wines. Sounds great. They'll collect your stuff for free if you're in zones 1 and 2. There's 24/7 access and all from just £10 a week.
London Storage Vaults, the future of self-storage. Visit londonstoragevaults.com. Terms and conditions apply.
Emirates are bringing the other side of the world closer to home with daily flights from London Stansted. Starting the 8th of June, you'll be able to fly from London Stansted all the way to Dubai and on to over 150 destinations worldwide, making getting from your home to the other side of the world much simpler. Fly Emirates from London Stansted and discover the other side of the world.
Want to progress more in your career or run your own business?
With a business degree at GSM London, you can follow your bold dreams to success.
Degrees are awarded by the University of Plymouth, and at GSM London, you can start a degree without formal qualifications on our foundation year.
So why wait till October? Start a degree this June.
Search Have Bold Dreams at GSM London now.
GSM London. Have bold dreams.
Leading Britain's conversation, The Nigel Farage Show. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag #FarageOnLBC.
Important though the role is of the House of Lords in the Brexit process, and one hell of a row going on, and many of you thinking, actually, their lordship's house, it's time they were now got rid of. I have a feeling that many of you at breakfast this morning were not discussing House of Lords reform. No, you were talking about the weather, weren't you? Because it has been astonishing. I had the day off yesterday. I was out in the English Channel. It was like the Mediterranean. I got back, as I said earlier, to the local supermarket to buy some charcoal. Virtually had to fight somebody off to get a bag of it. And we all love good weather. This May Day bank holiday that we're having tomorrow, this holiday first came in back in 1978, so this is the 40 years now that we've had this bank holiday weekend. I can always remember it being rainy and miserable and horrible and ghastly, but it appears it's going to be really rather good. So to put this in some sense of perspective, let's get weather guru John Ketley on the line. Good morning, John.
Yes, good morning to you, Nigel.
So, over the course of these 40 years, is this the best bank holiday weekend ever?
Yeah, without a question. I've got to say, I've been looking back at the records. You've stolen my thunder. Oh, shouldn't say that, really, should I?
Well, that was the next question, actually, but go on. Yeah.
Yes, you're quite right. It kicked in 1978, and for the first 20 years, it was absolute rubbish. It was often cold, it was often cloudy, and it was often raining. But since the turn of the century, really, things have improved considerably. The warmest I can find was 2008, when the temperature reached 23 degrees in London, for example. That was the highest. And again, 2013, 22 degrees in central London. So it's very rare to get above 20 degrees, and this year we're certainly going to break the record because we got the 23 degrees in many places yesterday, and it's going to be 25, 26 today, and probably a little bit more for tomorrow.
Wow.
So you're looking at 27, maybe even a 28 somewhere tomorrow afternoon.
And this settled weather, I mean, you know, tomorrow people are making plans. They're going to be going out picnicking.
Yeah.
Do they need to take umbrellas with them, or can you guarantee them that it won't rain?
Well, you know, I can virtually guarantee. It isn't the same everywhere.
Guarantee.
Yeah, virtually. It isn't the same absolutely everywhere, because anybody who's listening around the western and northern fringes of Scotland, there's a fair bit of cloud and cool weather there. There's some spots of rain about, little splashes of rain, and there's even some sea fog off the Cornish coast as well. Then at Bude, I can see it's very difficult to see out into the water So there are problems out on the western coast with this sea fog. But generally speaking, I think the cold weather that's coming back later in the week, or cooler weather, I should say, and more unsettled conditions, is going to hold off really for most of us until till Wednesday. But I think on Tuesday there will be some wetter weather coming in across Scotland and into the Irish Sea.
Okay, and a few weeks ago you predicted not the beast from the east, but the mini beast from the east, and we heard it here first. And I asked you then, I'm going to ask you again, is it going to be a barbecue summer, John Ketley?
Yes, you did ask me that, Nigel, and I'm sure at different parts of the summer there will be some barbecue weather. Can I give you a little hint? I've got my barbecue out today. I got the coals in early because I knew it was coming, obviously, as you would know. Of course. So it never catches me out, but I have been seen out in a barbecue in the rain, but just, isolated localised thunderstorms, that's what they are. But at the moment, you can't say at all. It's, obviously, summer's still a long way off,
of course.
For 3 or 4 months, you cannot predict which is the best part of the summer. But as we said last time, I think Wimbledon fortnight into early July could be a good pinpoint.
Terrific. John Ketley, have a great day. Thank you very much indeed. Well, there we are. It is the best ever bank holiday weather we've experienced in this country since this holiday came in 1978. So please, please enjoy it. Right, let's get back to the callers. Susan is calling from Callington in Cornwall. Have the House of Lords overstepped the mark here, Susan? Is it time we replace them with an elected House?
Good morning, Nigel.
Good morning.
Not only do I think the House of Lords, as it is, should be ended, I think I'd like to see the Houses of Parliament, well, not the House of Parliament itself, move to the Midlands, so it's no longer London-centric.
Well, there's an argument against that, Susan, which is this. The European Parliament once a month goes to Strasbourg. Strasbourg, by the way, a beautiful city on the Rhine, a city with a very heavily Franco-German contested history, and it goes there for symbolic reasons, but there are no direct air flights there from many parts of Europe, and it's a nightmare. And I suspect that if you moved the Houses of Parliament to Birmingham, you would find that members of Parliament from far-flung parts of the United Kingdom would find it a lot more difficult to get to Birmingham rather than London, where the greatest number can most quickly get to and from their constituencies.
Oh, that's interesting, yeah. I think it's that part of it.
My worry is not that the Commons is in London, it's not that the Second Chamber is in London, it's that most of the people in the Second Chamber, most of the people, Susan, in the House of Lords, live in London, work in London. I'm not sure many of them actually get beyond the M25.
Well, absolutely. I agree with Lord Lamont. I think you should be there to redress the balance.
Well, there are some that say I've already gone and upset and corrupted one parliament, and why not go and do it to another? But I don't, Susan. I am not. Given the appointment system in this country, I am not going to be in the House of Lords anytime soon. I don't really think I want to be, frankly. But Susan, if we have an elected second chamber, the trouble is to make sure that it still does a role of revision rather than flexing its muscles to stop the government. That is the challenge, I think, of an elected second house.
Perhaps it should come from the business sector more than anything.
Well, at the moment, we have, of course, bishops in the House of Lords and all sorts of people from a huge... the idea was the Lords would be made up of people from all different walks of life, sports people, business people, charities sector, trade unions, etc. But I'm afraid that under Cameron and under Blair, it's all become a little bit too samey. And on the Brexit point, do you think there is actually a plot amongst people in the House of Lords to stop Brexit, Susan?
Yeah, I certainly do. Of course there is, yeah.
And does that make you angry?
Furious.
Furious.
I think I'd like to see UKIP run with the idea of ending the House of Lords, because it would be so popular.
I think you may be right. I really do. Susan, I thank you very much indeed. Tina on Facebook says, the referendum has exposed our political elite and where their loyalties lie. Unfortunately, it is not with the British institution that they represent. Shameful. Nick is calling from Solihull. Good morning, Nick.
Hello, Nigel. It's great to speak to you. But my opinion, first of all, is that it's a cosy cabal of Remainers in the House of Lords. These people are unelected. They're not elected people. The Prime Minister, when they finished the term, she she appoints certain people in the cabinet or outside of the cabinet to the House of Lords, which basically it's a department of washed-up politicians, basically, on a nice little cosy £300 a day. And some of the reasons why the people in the House of Lords are trying to block Brexit. I mean, when we got people like Mandelson, Kinnock and Prescott, you've got Mandelson who's on £35,000 a year pension, Kinnock's on £90,000, Prescott, one of the two gins and tonic Prescott, who was always an advocate of getting rid of the House of Lords.
So was Neil Kinnock.
Kinnock was one of the worst. But I mean, his family are all linked to the EC, aren't they? With all nice little pensions, and bearing in mind as well, there are lots of lords who are actually have pensions from the EU. So one of the conditions. And
they never declare it, Nick.
No, they don't.
They never, when they get up to speak on the European Union subject, they never declare that interest. Nick, you're clearly done with the House of Lords. The question is, how do we replace it with an elected body and still keep it as a revising chamber rather than one that's going to start to challenge the supremacy of the House of Commons?
Well, as you say, they should be elected. So something like a Privy Council, that type of thing, of people who are very learned people, and should be there should be a committee which appoints people with suitable business acumen, suitable political sort of unbiased views, and elect them in that capacity.
I tell you what, Nick. Getting people with unbiased views in any walk of life is not the easiest thing to do, because we all have our opinions. But, Nick, you clearly are finished with it. You think they're overpaid, washed-up politicians. And you know what? In the main, they are. How is it the Liberal Democrats have got 104 peers? I find that absolutely extraordinary. Nigel, there ought to be a rule that no ex-politician should be a lord. Well, under its current setup, it's pretty impossible for that not to be the case. What is for certain over Brexit is I think they're behaving very badly. Lord Lamont makes the point that never before in history have the House of Lords tried to bind a government's hands that is in the course of an international negotiation. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's 11:45.
Coming up at 12 on LBC, Majid Nawaz.
Boris Johnson is urging Trump not to scrap America's nuclear deal with Iran, as Israel's Prime Minister insists Iran is preparing nuclear weapons. Are Israel and Iran about to go to war?
Majid Nawaz on LBC.
Little Red Riding Hood has been trying to sell her grandma's home for some time now, but the estate agent's shining, sharp teeth have left her with sweat on her brow.
Trust me, darling, I just want what's best for you, hence the added fees.
However, she spoke to the friendly team at Property Rescue, who cut out the middleman and guaranteed a sale in as little as 48 hours with no fees whatsoever. Fast forward to living happily ever after. Visit propertyrescue.co.uk. Property Rescue. Fast forward to sold.
In the Furniture Village sale, you can live beautifully for less. With bank holiday savings on a huge choice of living, dining and beds, including all our famous brands. So come in store or go online now, because we're sure there's something for you in the Furniture Village sale. But hurry, many offers end bank holiday Monday.
Your future is here. The Global Academy, a forward-thinking state school for 14 to 19-year-olds interested in a media career. Visit globalacademy.com to find out more.
Even if you only employ one person, you have to provide a workplace pension. It's the law. Get to know your responsibilities with help from the pensions regulator. Visit workplacepensions.gov.uk.
There are many ways to see Tenerife. Its historic towns, architecture, volcanoes, or just mile on mile of beautiful beaches. But there's only one way to fly.
Fly British Airways from Gatwick to Tenerife from £299 per person for return flights and 7 nights accommodation. Availability and dates are extremely limited. ATOL protected. Conditions and booking fee may apply. For full details, cba.com/Gatwick.
Forget everything you know about musicals. Bat Out of Hell brings to life the legendary hits of Jim Steinman and Meatloaf. In this outrageous, nostalgic, wild child of a rock and roll musical. Now playing at London's Dominion Theatre. Book now at batoutofhellmusical.com.
Right now, you can drive off with Aviva car insurance rated 5-star by de facto from just £176 a year. And should you need us, our claims line is open 24/7. Get a quote today direct from aviva.co.uk.
10% of customers paid £176 or less for our standard cover. November 2017 to January 2018. Priced individually.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
As the Lords inflict defeats on the government over the European Union withdrawal bill, I'm asking the question, is it now time to abolish the House of Lords? And I can't see any other logical thing to do, given how badly wrong Blair's reforms have gone. Don't forget, the House of Lords was going to be much more suitable to modern Britain, and it's become nothing of the kind. Meanwhile, London crime. It's an issue over which Donald Trump has been attacked over the weekend. He talked about a London hospital being like an Afghan war zone in response to a doctor from this country having said it before. But overnight, more bad news. A 17-year-old boy has died after being inflicted with gunshot wounds in South London in Southwark early yesterday evening. And overnight, 3 more people rushed to hospital after a suspected acid attack in East London this morning. This story of mounting violent crime in London not going away soon. Back to the House of Lords. Paul in Bromley, what is your opinion on this? Good morning.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, can you hear me? Yes. Hi, Nigel. Nice to thank you.
Yes, okay. So what do you think, Paul?
Yeah. I think we should keep the load, and I mean it's really, really dangerous to start this argument, getting rid of the load. We end up getting rid of the Queen, and this is the history of Britain. This is why we're a great nation, We do things like that. We have to have people to scrutinize us. And looking at the Windrush scandals and everything, I mean, if we don't have those people, wise people to have to scrutinize what we're doing, we end up in very, very big troubles. I'm a young person, and I fully support the Queen. I fully support the law, and I think, if we going through what you start doing, we'll get rid of the Queen.
Paul, there is no prospect of us getting rid of the Queen. Certainly not the Queen, and not even the monarchy. I don't believe that for a moment. Although, if people thought that the monarch was abusing their constitutional position, you would start to hear more Republican voices. The point, Paul, is twofold here. One, that the House of Lords, in rejecting large sections of the government's European Union withdrawal bill policy, are overstepping the mark. The second point, Paul, is you talk about it as a piece of the history of this country. That is true. But Tony Blair in 1999 got rid of nearly all of the historic peers, bar 92. And, Paul, what they've done is they've stuffed the place with their mates and their party donors. I mean, Blair appointed 357 members of the House of Lords, and David Cameron appointed 242, 40 per year that he was in office. And what I'm saying, Paul, is because of the behaviour of Blair and Cameron, it's lost in its current shape all credibility.
If that's what you're saying, I mean, it's getting more sense to me. But getting rid of the whole thing, you can actually revise it. You can make some changes. But I don't think, it's a wise idea to try to get rid of it. It's just wrong.
Well, what I would do,
that's
Paul.
my point of view.
Okay, I would do, Paul. Okay, just hear me through. I'm not for one moment suggesting that we get rid of a revising chamber. I can see the benefit in that.
Okay, that's good. Yeah.
And I wouldn't get rid of the building, or the history, or the role. I just think perhaps it needs to become a Senate, which perhaps would be more reflective of 21st century Britain.
Okay, I mean, the way, but we need to have some sort of scrutinizing.
Absolutely. No, Paul, absolutely. I agree with you. Yeah, no.
I heard about talking and become like we have to get rid of it. This is really wrong.
Okay.
Wrong,
No, that's clarified the argument for everybody. Paul from Bromley, thank you very much indeed. Many people in my lords, I'm told, have years of experience in politics. They're okay, says Jackie from Watford. Well, that would be fine. Be nice if they had different points of view. It seems they've all got the same view on Brexit. At least many of them have. How many lords receive subsidies from the European Union to maintain their huge estates when some people struggle in this country? Ed. Well, Ed, of course, that's, you can go back to the Corn Laws debate of the 1840s and find that very often in this country, the great divide when it comes to change are the landowning classes against the small business and entrepreneurial classes. And Brexit in many ways reflects that great tradition. But you're quite right. Many, many people in the House of Lords who will be receiving EU subsidies, though to be fair, there would have been even more of them before the 1999 reform. Let's go to Anne in Boston in Lincolnshire. Good morning, Anne.
Good morning, Nigel. I'd just like to say about the House of Lords, there was a year or so ago, they had a great big meeting in there, and I was horrified to find they all rebelled over something or other, I can't remember, but I was horrified to find there was about 800 to 900 of them.
Oh, yes.
And I couldn't believe it, so I wrote to the Prime Minister and told her that we should have no more than 60. And 60? They should be made up of whoever, wants to vote for them. And it should be £50 a day. And that's sufficient for their expenses. So they can be there to legislate or read over the legislation.
I don't think 50 quid a day works, Anne. I mean, you might live in Swindon, for argument's sake, and be commuting into the House of Lords 2 or 3 days a week. So I'm not sure 50 quid a day works, but your general point...
They don't have to attend, do they? They don't have to go.
No,
so
but if...
Only those that really want to be there will be there for £50 a day, and therefore we'll have only about 60 of them. And after all, they're all rich. They don't need the money anyway.
A lot of them are rich, Anne. I'm sure there are some Labour, Tory, crossbench peers listening to this who aren't rich at all. So it's a bit of everything. But no, the general point. So Anne, you think by removing financial incentives, that will reduce the number that turn up. But would you find it more attractive, Anne, to think of having a Senate where maybe you elected people and they serve just one 15-year term?
I don't really understand the word Senate, so I'd just say that...
Well, elected House.
Elected House, definitely, but say 60 of them or 100, whatever.
Yeah, well, I would say about 100 would probably be about the right number if we...
£50 a day, as I say, anybody that objected to that just doesn't need to go there.
No. OK, Anne, thank you. And one of the problems, of course, with this is that if you do elect people to the House of Lords, / Senate, or call it what you will then have to start paying them salaries. These peers are not paid salaries. They are paid a daily turn-up allowance. Now, clearly some people have abused that. Turn up, sign on, disappear. That has been happening on quite a large scale. And it is true that the bars and restaurants do sell food and drink at extremely good prices. I've been for lunch there many times. And it's actually, it is like a club. It's really like a sort of club just full of old folks, and that's what it is. And I guess if you're a member of it, and you haven't got to travel a huge distance to come to it, it's a very lovely club to be a member of. But is it representative of society? Is it fit for purpose in 21st century Britain? And I say it's not, even before their attempt to collude with many to stop Brexit from happening. So I do feel quite strongly about it. Peter is calling from Wimbledon. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning, Nigel. Nigel, I suppose you wouldn't be talking about this if you had some of your donors and mates in the House of Lords. And the reason, because you never were elected to be a member of Parliament, probably that's one of the reasons why you haven't got anyone in there. And one of the other reasons were, to be honest...
Well, no, Peter. Peter, I have, of course, pointed out that it's gross that there are 104 Liberal Democrat peers and not one UKIP peer. There are 3 that sit there as UKIP who came from the Conservatives, but not one ever been appointed to UKIP, despite it being, beating the Liberal Democrats in several elections. But hey, this is not about UKIP. It's certainly not about me. It is about whether, because of the powers of patronage, a place that has been filled up with 500 of Blair and Cameron's mates is fit for purpose.
Well, Nigel, I mean, just honestly, put your hand on heart and tell us, are you going to give up your European Union pension? And are you going to give back the money the way you're not attending Fisherman Committee? You've been such a...
Oh, no, Peter. Had I attended, I'd have been paid to attend. Because I didn't attend, I wasn't paid, all right? So get that very clear. I saved the taxpayers' money. And had that committee had legislative power, I'd have gone to it. When I found out it was a waste of time, I didn't bother. Peter, why is it of the 22,000 people, right? 22,000 people who are entitled to EU pensions of varying degrees, the only one you're bothered about is mine.
Well, because you're the one just talking about this, about other people in the House of Lords receiving EU pension, and you forget to mention yourself. If you're the ones who advocate so strongly against unelected people in the EU and so on, like as you say, because you see, Nigel, the problem is you are a liar and a con man, and a lot of people fell for it.
Well, I tell you what, if I'm a con man, Peter, I'm a bloody good one, aren't I?
Would you like me to explain to you why?
You do, go on.
Never once I've heard you, before the referendum, talking about real issues, The referendum was a black and white issue.
So you've never, Peter, you've never heard me talk about grammar schools, no?
No, I've heard you talking about Syrian refugees which have absolutely nothing to do with the membership of the EU. You stood about that shameful poster, yeah? Saying we are...
Well, you're quite right, Peter. Peter, you're quite right. I was the first politician in Britain to suggest that we should take some Syrian refugees at a time when everybody else ran away from the issue, and I have particularly said that for Christians in Syria and other parts of the Middle East, life has become increasingly bleak, and I think we should have taken some Syrian Christian refugees, but hey, no one listened. Peter, have a lovely Sunday too. You've been listening to the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. I'm back tomorrow night at 7. At 3 this afternoon, it's Andrew Castle, but up next, it's Majid Nawaz.
Thanks, Nigel. Tell you, if you campaign for reform of the House of Lords, I'll be standing right there with you.
Absolutely, good.
Coming up, government figures reveal that Oxford had the 4th lowest state school entry rate in Britain. Are Oxford and Cambridge failing ethnic minority and working class communities? Before that, Theresa May's new Home Secretary is a British Pakistani of Muslim origin. Some left-wing voices, usually champions of anti-racism and diversity, mind you, greeted his appointment with disdain, claiming that the Tories' appointment was a token, or that he was an Uncle Tom. Isn't this a left-wing form of the very same racism we've seen before? But first up, Boris Johnson's flying to Washington to urge Trump not to scrap America's nuclear deal with Iran, as Israel's PM unveiled a cache of Iranian nuclear files. Are Israel and Iran preparing for war?